you enjoyed the session on Sundar Nursery. Um, if you haven't visited it, please do go and have a stroll around there and enjoy the beautiful work which has been put in by the Aga Khan Foundation. It will truly be a wonderful day out. And continuing on that topic, perhaps in some ways, here we are talking about the future of travel and hospitality. Looking ahead, um, the sector is probably one of those sectors which has been affected a lot by the pandemic. But I'm sure there is always new ways of things cropping up, and that's what we are going to find out during this discussion. I would like to invite Harjinder Singh, Sudeep Jain, and Sanjiv and Gautam Raj. Welcome to the Vasant Vihar Litfest 2021. Happy to have you all part of this. Gautam is the moderator. I will just say a few words about Gautam, and then Gautam, you can introduce the other panelists. Um, Gautam has had a varied journey. Born in Patna, educated in London, and he's worked in career split between London and Delhi in strategy consulting, corporate finance, investment banking, hospitality, and real estate development. Travel has been a constant in his life, especially when he was working with the Oberoi Group, where he was responsible for developing new luxury hotels for the group. He's currently nurturing a new baby called Xenia that that seeks to provide serviced rental housing for young singles in India. Gautam, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you. Sundar Nursery, good afternoon to you all. Sundar Nursery and the creation of this wonderful destination provides, I think, a very good glide path to our pre-lunch session on the future of travel and hospitality. We have with us three veterans from different parts of the industry, experienced not just in India, but also beyond in a variety of places, and with us to chat about their experiences and their perspectives on its future. First, we have Harjinder Singh, Harji, as he prefers to be known, who's been arranging and curating bespoke trips for many years out of the UK, especially for stars and personalities. He's now in the process of launching Harji Travels, focused solely on India as a destination. Next, we have Sanjiv Kapoor, an aviation veteran responsible for getting us flying, most recently as Chief Operating Officer of SpiceJet and as Chief Strategy and Commercial Officer at Vistara. Sanjiv has now moved on and is an independent aviation consultant. Lastly, to round off our panel, we have Sudeep Jain, who's moved the other way, starting out first as a consultant to hospitality companies, then moving to persuading people to build hotels. For the last few years, leading Intercontinental Hotels Group in Southwest Asia and responsible for the operation of all their hotels within the region. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Some say that to travel is to live. From what I know, you guys don't just love travel, but have made the sector your lives. Tell us a little bit more how this happened and your journey. How did the bug bite and what drew you to make your life in the sector? Sanjiv, may I ask you?
Sure, Gautam, thanks for having me. Well, I can give a very, very long and emotional answer to this, but I'll keep it short. Growing up in Calcutta, Sudeep and I went to the same school actually in Calcutta. Growing up in Calcutta in the 70s and 80s was a time of power cuts, spending nights on terraces, heat, sweat, studying in candlelight until the inverters came about, etc. And I used to have these relatives, this uncle and aunt of mine living in Germany, used to fly in every year on Pan Am and coming in from Tehran, going to Hong Kong and Honolulu, etc. And to me, travel was an escape. It just symbolized everything that I wanted to head towards and get away from in terms of the wonderful lifestyle that they seem to have and the difficulties with which we were going through. Combined with that, I loved aviation. I loved airplanes since I was a kid. Many young boys and girls just love airplanes. It just comes to them naturally. So the combination of this wanderlust for travel and the wonders of the world that lay beyond 70s and 80s Calcutta and the love of airplanes is what got me into this business.
Excellent. Arji, how about you?
Well, I was brought up as an army child, and we moved every 2 or 3 years, and travel and change is in my blood. And I was doing an MBA at the London Business School, and the loans are piled up very high. I needed some way of repaying those loans. And being an IAS officer, I couldn't take up a job there. So I started a business in my wife's name called Transcendus, just to repay my education loans. And then the business did so well, I had to quit IAS. That's how I'm here.
Okay, so success drew you. Sudeep, how about yourself?
So Gautam, I think mine was a little bit more by chance, I should say, not purely, but somewhat. So, prior to getting into the hospitality industry, I was a consultant and probably one of the biggest consumers of hotel rooms. And it just so happened that once I'd had enough of that traveling for business, I was looking for another job, and it so happened that I managed to find a fellow alumnus from my school who got along really well, who I got along with very well, and got hired there at Starwood, and that began the journey. Once the bug bit, as they say, the rest was history. So it's been almost about 20 years now since.
Excellent, excellent. Gentlemen, travel and hospitality, as the organizers have been saying, has been amongst the most severely impacted sectors since the onset of COVID last year. Fewer trips, especially on planes, particularly across borders, fewer nights spent in hotels. Some say that the hotel industry this year is likely to be down on revenues by 60 to 70%. What is going on? It's been a year since I last traveled out of Delhi, let alone India. So is domestic leisure beginning to bounce back? One keeps hearing that, half of Delhi is in Goa, half of Mumbai is in the Maldives. The hill stations are doing good business. What exactly is going on?
So Gautam, I think you hit it on the head in the beginning, which was to travel is life, and I think that we generally believe that. So people do want to travel, inherently. I think we are nomads, and so we don't like to stay in one place. And you can see that in the numbers. The proof is in the pudding. So since the advent of, I guess, a little bit of the vaccination and people taking some more controls on what's happening with the pandemic, we've seen month on month, at least from the month of September, the business improving quite substantially, right? So and primarily on the occupancy side. So December we ended up almost close to 50% occupancy across our hotels in India. We've got 40 of them. And so far in January, the first 15 days of January are up almost about 25-30% than what it was the first 15 days in December, right? So certainly it's going up, and you're right. The primary business which is picking up is domestic leisure, and also what I call social MICE, which is sort of the weddings, birthday parties, engagement parties, or friends just getting together. So the two biggest segments which have picked up is social MICE and the domestic leisure, which is now moved on from just staycations or people driving within the neighborhood or within the same city to now people getting on planes and traveling domestically, or as you said, Maldives and Dubai, which seem to be the choicest destinations for the rest of the world as well. So, and not to forget F&B. F&B is, which was historically more with the advent of, standalone restaurants and so on, was more popular there. But it seems to be migrating back to the hotel segment right now again for people.
Oh, that's intriguing to hear. Okay. Are people traveling on work? Do you see business volumes coming back?
Very little. So the work volume, which we're seeing, Gautam, is more projects-related work where people were either spread out across so we've got, they're spread out across the cities or across the country. So we've got some multinational putting up factories towards Greater Noida. And, we've got 60 rooms from that company in one of our hotels. But that was all a consolidation. The same 60 people were spread out across different hotels in Delhi. But given that that's close to the project side, they were all consolidated and moved to one hotel. So the business, travel is not really something to write home about. It's not back to what it needs to be. And once that's back is when I would say the industry is getting back to as normal as possible. So,
Okay.
but today that's not the big segment.
Sanjiv, are the airlines getting travelers back in the air? Are people traveling by air, or are they going on road trips to nearby destinations wherever they live? Are they traveling short or in-country trips? What's happening in the air?
So I think the aviation travel segments are similar to what Sudeep described for hotel. We have about 50 or 55% of the volume of air travelers now compared to a year ago. The occupancy or the load factor is about 70%, but that's because we're flying fewer flights. So as an industry, we're about 50 or 55%. The segments that are traveling are similar to what Sudeep described. Aviation also has currently a large volume of the passengers are essentially migrants are going home, whether it's professional migrants or workers or labor, who are choosing more and more to fly rather than take the train because it's easier and shorter and quite cheap and safer in some sense to fly. So the migrant or people going home to visit family segment is pretty big. Increasingly, we are seeing this revenge leisure travel that Sudeep talked about, friends getting together and people starting to get out a little bit more frustrated, by the lockdowns, etc. Business travel is not coming back very much at all. Business travel typically for airlines accounts for about 20% of the volume, but 50% of the revenue. So in terms of revenue, it is really the industry is still struggling. And international is again, people are traveling only if they have to. Students are traveling, people when they have to visit their relatives, and so on and so forth. Leisure travel international has been limited, very very limited. I think again, as you mentioned, Goa's domestic, Maldives and Dubai have been the three bright spots. But again, with the virus, with the vaccine coming, there's a lot of hope, but the virus seems to be mutating and new variants coming out. So that, you've got both forces, an accelerating force and a breaking. So things are kind of in status quo. The kind of recovery we started seeing around October, November of 2020 has stalled. It's stuck at that in the aviation side.
Mm-hmm. But the engine for both airlines and hotels are off in India, certainly is business travel, or has been. And if I read a while ago, Bill Gates was pronouncing that half of all business trips won't happen. Now, maybe that's an extreme view, but even if 20-30% of business trips don't happen, what's that going to do to hotels and airlines?
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, open question to
Sure.
To all of you, whoever wants to pick that up.
And essentially, I think the conventional wisdom is about 20% of the corporate travel will reduce, 20 to 25%. Not as bad as Bill Gates' estimate. Some people say that it'll bounce back and get back to normal like before, which again is a very optimistic estimate. But let's just take a middle ground. Say about 25% goes away. That's equal to about 3 years worth of growth going away. And so in 2024 or 2023 even, we'll probably get back to 2019 volumes and then grow driven by GDP thereafter. So yes, the industry as a whole would have lost 3 years worth of growth, which equals about 20 to 25% of the volume that would have grown during that period. And then from a lower base or from a suppressed base will resume its growth again. So I don't think the need for business travel is going to go away. Certainly, the day trips to Bombay for a 1 hour long meeting from Delhi will go away because people realize that's just a waste of time and a huge lot of effort, just for something you can do on
Yep.
Zoom now. But I still
Yep.
think the predominant or the majority volume of business traffic will come back because people need to meet, people need to interact, people need to still get together, look at each other in the eye, and do deals. And some things just cannot be done on Zoom. I think the doomsday scenario is probably exaggerated, but yes, there will be a smaller base from which we'll be growing, or a suppressed base from which we'll be growing again.
Okay, well, we'll pick on some of this a little later, but let's just think about people traveling into India from overseas. Harji, your business is centered around that. When do you think people are going to be starting to ask about bespoke trips to India or other long haul places?
In the UK market, there was stirrings till this mutation came and fresh lockdown came. And people are immediately thinking of traveling just for relaxation, not for seeing places, but beach resorts. And in 21, bookings are expected in Seychelles, Mauritius, Maldives, Dubai, Caribbean. Wherever you have places, people can go and relax and recover from the trauma of being locked down for more than a year. Long haul travel for cultural visiting of places like typical British who come to India and travel around for a few weeks, that is more likely to start in 2022.
Okay.
And the inbound tour operators here depend on the cultural travelers who come in.
Right.
The inbound is a very bad scene in India. Last 9 months have been nil, and we expect the nine months also to be nil. But having said that, when the bookings pick up, it'll pick up with a vengeance, with a pent-up demand. And one of the problems the industry will face is they'll have cut down staff to survive, and they won't be able to meet this demand. So they won't have the capacity to handle the bookings that come in. So that's a dilemma there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just, I think that's a good cue to try and just move the discussion maybe to looking at what happens when things are back. I mean, COVID aside, India isn't really seen as top of mind as a destination by international travelers. It's not the easiest place to travel to. And it's always been shocking, really, that it isn't. The country is brimming with attractions. I was chatting to Sanjiv, and we were sharing some notes that, we have maybe 4,000 attractions versus 4 attractions, really, or 5 attractions in Thailand. And yet, Thailand gets 10 times as many international travelers coming into Thailand that we do. So few people come to India relative to the potential of what it has to offer in terms of experiences, to your point, Harji. The industry creates huge employment. It catalyzes infrastructure development. For each rupee of investment, it's one of the best at creating jobs. So it's very important to revive and boost tourism. I guess the question is, what can be done to attract 10 to 20 times more people to travel to India? Arju, you said they will come back with a vengeance. When it does come back with a vengeance, how does India get an unfair share of that vengeance, of that bounce back? What does it need to do? What's the problem?
India needs to market itself properly. We Indians, especially our government officials who manage tourism, we don't think marketing, and marketing is what we need to think. And we need to market and address the issues that prevent people from thinking of coming to India. When we do market, we keep telling about our positive features. People and the world knows that. They're more concerned about the negative features which prevent them from coming. So the image of poverty, crowds, squalor, even security, single women or even women otherwise they ask twice before deciding to come to India. So that image has to be changed uh, by reassuring people that we are not doing properly or at all. That's my concern.
But Harji, these are societal things. These take time. I mean, the government can try and encourage some of these changes, but they change at glacial pace. I guess what I'm asking is, we're going to have a bounce back, maybe say in a year, 2 years time. How do we brace ourselves to try and what do we need to do now to try and get more of the bounce back?
Okay.
What are the two or three things you'd
The,
advise the government to do?
the good quality tour operators, say in the UK, which
Mm.
is the market I know, the
Mm.
clients that come to India, the satisfaction rate is on nearly 99%. They're very happy. That is because tour operators who handle clients take care of all of these things and make sure that the client is happy. So the negative elements they're not exposed to, or even when they're exposed to, it's in a controlled manner so that they feel secure. When we promote ourselves, we need these past clients who've been to India to speak about their experience. We should not be talking about it ourselves. So when a government official goes and speaks saying, come to India, it has no value.
Okay.
Get a client who's been here, get him to speak, much more value.
Okay, more advocacy.
Yes. And I had suggested to our previous tourism minister here, who was a friend in the service before, to have a brand ambassador in the UK who's a Gora, which is very important. Like Amitabh Bachchan was a Gujarat. And we know people who are very good in Indophiles and good image in their own country who can be a brand ambassadors.
Okay. Um, Many more Indians go out of India than foreigners come into India, perhaps 2 to 3 times as many. India is sort of strange in that respect, I guess.
About 3 times.
Uh, the part of the problem, Sudeep, that the traditional focus of hotels has been on international travelers, that actually hotels have also not paid as much attention to the needs of domestic travelers and creating domestic leisure destinations and products
So
until recently.
yeah. So traditionally, you're right. And listen, I think I'll give you a little bit of a biased answer because IHG is more catered towards the domestic market, right? So we've consciously made an effort there. But part of the problem, and I'll try and answer some of the question which you asked earlier also, is why can't we attract people like Thailand can, say, for example, right? So and I think Harshi said something which was very resonant, which is, if you come in through a destination or a tour operator and so on, you get the great service. Like they always say in India, there is the red carpet treatment, and then there is the regular carpet treatment, right? If you want to call it that, or there is no carpet there. If you come in through the red carpet treatment, or you get the red carpet experience, I think India is a fantastic destination. Where would you get product like we have? And or the service what we have, and the sort of the experiences what we have, so if you're coming in and staying in that luxury segment, flying in business or first class, and you're staying at the Tajes and the Oberois, and across the forests and the cultural Rajasthan and so on, and the backwaters of Kerala, absolutely. But if you look at Thailand, it offers that, so you can get ultra luxury, but it also offers the backpack travel, which we offer too partially, but it also offers a very great experience if you're an average 3-star, 4-star hotel type consumer without the need of a tour operator, right? You can come in, you can design your own program, and you will get a great experience. You're not going to be hassled in any manner. I think besides just marketing, we have to also implement those changes, because it can't be just all talk. It has to be talk and action. And until people don't experience that and talk about it, I completely agree that you're not going to be able to market yourself. Now, the domestic side, I think you're right. Partially, it's because we always catered to the international tourist, right, or the international traveler historically, and we never paid as much credence to the domestic travel. Just like you said, outbound from India is 3x to inbound in India. If you look at the overall statistics of Indian travel or inter-country travel versus international travel, that number is, I think, about 100x, right? So 800 million trips, or now probably a billion trips within India versus 10 million customers coming into India, including friends and family coming to visit their family. So I think we never paid heed to that earlier, and I think there's some commerciality to that. It wasn't always the most lucrative segment to make money. And there was also historically, I think you can attribute some of it to cultural aspects. Listen, when I was a kid, if you went out, or even if it was for business, or dad traveled for business, he stayed with the uncle or aunt or bua or chacha or someone or the other. But today, if I tell my niece that, hey, listen, you're traveling for business to Delhi and stay with this uncle, they're like going to be like, no way, right? I think there is also that sort of cultural shift in the mindset shift. I think and if you look at the last couple of years, we are now moving in that direction where you have much more hotel product, which is coming on, which is catered to domestic travelers. Gone are the days when you go to a hotel and you see most of the guests being all, as Haji said, Goras, sitting in the lobby. Gone are where all the staff were primarily, historically the general managers were all sort of expats who come in from traditionally Europe. That's changing. It's evolving. I think we are on the path to tourism, and I think you cannot also ignore the airlift. Again, as a little kid, I remember Bombay to Delhi, there were 2 flights a day, IC 402 and IC 253. That was it, right? So, there were 400 people or maximum 500 people which could travel between India and Delhi, or Delhi and Calcutta on a daily basis. That is it, right? Today, that's not true. And I think, so it's all kind of linked. Once you establish the infrastructure and the airlift, you want to get people to travel more, you create the experience, and that cycle will carry on. And I think we launched on that cycle. We've got a long ways to go. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Connectivity, I guess in trying to create new product or additional product, you have to have connectivity. It has to be easy for people to get to wherever they want to get to. And air connectivity used to be a huge challenge. That's now changing. There are not just hub and spoke flights. There are flights, from one small town to another, not via necessarily Delhi or Bangalore or Mumbai or Calcutta. But still, Sanjiv, we have very few destinations. What's the challenge in trying to create more destinations in India?
I think
to make it easier to get around.
Yeah. So air connectivity has improved and increased tremendously in the last 15 to 20 years, where earlier there were about 35 cities in India with air travel, became 65, and now there's over 100 airports that can handle commercial air travel. I think 80 of them are being served. So I think you can pretty much, if there's demand, there's a flight now. And you're right, we've also increased the number of direct flights, so you don't need to change planes. I think the primary challenge is connectivity in India is the last mile connectivity. You can get to an airport, the closest airport. Now, if you want to go to Hampi, which is a World Heritage Site or whatever you call it, it's a wonderful sights to see there, but you have to drive for 4 hours from wherever the closest airport is, and that 4-hour drive is often a back-breaking drive full of potholes and. And if you're a nervous driver like me, you get terrified seeing the trucks coming at you at full speed, etc. So it's a last connectivity in India, which I think is holding us back. To build on the previous answer, a question that I think Sudeep and Harji did a great job answering, it's the hassles of traveling that is a detraction or a point of detraction for foreign travelers. I mean, if you just look at what's going on in India right now at Bombay and Delhi in terms of international arrivals, we are going backwards. Every passenger who now lands on an international flight in Bombay, Delhi, needs to go through customs and have the bags x-rayed, creating, just hassles everywhere. You step out of the airport, there's hassles with touts, surrounding you, etc. Unfortunately, we are the cleanest city in the world. You can't, and it's not easy, even for me, being an Indian, to hire a car in a new city and drive because, the traffic is crazy, the road signage doesn't exist. And self-rental car options are hardly in existence. So compare it to Thailand and other places, the hassle factor is huge in India. Last mile connectivity is a huge problem in India. And one aspect which has not been covered is India, despite having the image or reputation of being a value for money destination, is actually quite expensive. I mean, for people living in Delhi, it is actually cheaper to fly to Phuket and have a 4-star or 5-star holiday in Phuket, including the cost of airfare and the hotel, than it is to fly to Goa in peak season, I'm talking about, and have a similar standard of holiday in Goa. Because the 5-star hotels in peak season Goa become so expensive, the flights become so expensive, it's actually cheaper to go to Thailand. And therefore, there's lots of things we need to work on. We need to work on the infrastructure. We need to work on removing these everyday hassles, which are just brain dead, in my opinion. In this day and age, to have every passenger arriving extra in their bags, especially in COVID times, is just crazy. And we need to look at the mass market segment that Sudeep talked about. I mean, India is great at attracting the luxury segment, which I think both Arjun and Sudeep talked about, the escorted guided tour, luxury tours. The backpackers, student population also, they find India exciting and adventurous. But the individual mass segment travel, the 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, who want to just arrive on their own, find their own way around, rent a car, not have hassle, that segment is completely not attracted to India because we are a very difficult country to travel in if you belong to that segment.
Fair enough. Do we also have a lack of product? I mean, if you look at markets like Singapore or Dubai or Thailand, India as a source market is amongst the biggest. And you ask, what kind of travel is going on? A lot of it isn't even travel to those destinations. They're going to an Atlantis, or they're going to a Disney or a Legoland. What prevents India from having some of these themed, large volume, self-contained destinations? Again, this speaks to the product. There is a lack of product. If I want to go somewhere, if I want to take my kids, I end up having to think about taking them to Atlantis to have a couple of days where they can frolic around. Why can't I do that in India? What's the challenge?
I'm going to jump in here. So Gautam, maybe to me, we got to look at what India has to offer, right? And maybe it's not the Disneyland or the Legoland and the Atlantis. What India offers is the Kashmir Rally and or maybe not the best example, the culture and colors and food of Rajasthan and the backwaters of Kerala, and Sanjiv mentioned the World Heritage Sites at Hampi, and or the the Mughal, the Taj Mahal, or the Charminar and Hyderabad. So it's got a lot of culture and I guess history and food and different aspects of that, which I think we have to offer. We may not ever become a Disneyland or a Legoland or a Atlantis, and I'm not even sure that we need to, right? I think the people who are going to get attracted to a Disneyland will always prefer to go to the Hong Kong or the Paris or the Orlando or the LAs of the world as opposed to us, because for us to get to that same level as them is going to be a challenge. Where historically it's a challenge that if you wanted to go to, let's take Agra, and you did not want to spend in the month of December, $400 a night or $500 a night, there wasn't an option, right? Or the option was such that you get a $50 option, which is Hotel Sudeep, and you don't know what you get. And I think we moved from there, right? Today you can go to an Agra and you'll get a Radisson also, you'll get a Holiday Inn also, and you'll get a ITC Mughal also, and you'll get the Amar Vilas also, and you'll and so on. So I think we moved along that direction, whereby now people are saying, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go to India and I'll do a little I'll do the triangle, if you will, the Agra, Jaipur, and so on. Or there'll be, places that are going to go to the Buddhist sites, so they'll go to the Gaya and the Varanasi and so on and so forth. So I think we offer a different set of USPs, which I think are unparalleled as well during the world. We've just not, I would say, taken them to their full potential, right?
Okay.
And it is what everyone's saying is the hassle, is the last mile connectivity. It's once you get there, cleanliness and hygiene, and you're going to get, conned into doing something which you don't want to do, and all kinds of stuff like that. And I think that's where we don't attract the people today, and all the so.
Okay. Let's just shift back now to talking a little bit more back about COVID. COVID has dented the confidence of travelers. And I suspect on the corporate or the business travel side, their employers, companies are not comfortable for their guys to travel. When 9/11 happened, security risks changed travel fundamentally. We saw our airports kit up with a lot more security apparatus and infrastructure. We had to change our habits in terms of what you could carry, the kind of forms you had to fill in, the queues you had to endure or have to endure. And flying, wasn't a just-in-time activity. The pre-boarding nonsense became a lot greater. The friction became greater. But we've all adapted to those risks, and travel bounced back. With COVID, health and safety are the new risks. So I guess the question I'm wondering is, what needs to change to restore the confidence of travelers? Sanjiv, what are the things that airlines are going to have to do differently to get travelers more confident about travel by air?
See, in the short term, airlines just need to reassure customers that the risk of catching COVID during travel at the airport or on the aircraft is low or minimal, which it is. So I think airlines just need to make sure that they enforce the masks, mandate. They keep the aircraft clean, that they communicate and educate the customers on the fact that the chances of catching COVID if you're wearing a mask on an aircraft is close to zero. And just keep reassuring them that the air travel itself is not the risk. However, once COVID is behind us, which I hope that day will come sooner rather than later, hopefully 2021, I think airlines just need to go back to normal and make travel as hassle-free as possible again. I mean, it's not fun traveling today. You feel like you're on a space mission, especially. Sorry?
But Sanjeev, actually, there's more hassle. I mean, now you've got to think about wearing a mask. A friend of my son's traveled out yesterday to Cairo to resume work. She spent 9 hours in a plane on the tarmac in Delhi because the flight was delayed. No big deal in itself, but 9 hours wearing the mask, being confined, worried about, gee, will I be able to eat? Will I be able to use the loos? Who's next to me? Are they sneezing? I mean, there's actually much more friction now. There's much more hassle. So what are airlines going to have to do to restore confidence, apart from cleaning stuff? I mean, we're having to do more.
Yeah. See, Gautam, in the near term, there's nothing the airlines can do to remove that hassle. I mean, those hassles
I'm talking longer term.
Longer term, I think the need to wear masks and shields, etc., will be history. It'll be gone, and I think the hope and the expectation is you'll get back to normal, where you just travel like you used to travel in 2019. I mean, the security hassles will still be there because unfortunately that hasn't gone away. You still need to, in the US, take your shoes off. In India, take every piece of electronics out of your baggage, etc. But that's back to what it was in 2019. People were used to it. But in terms of COVID-related hassles, those hassles will stay as long as COVID is around because they are there to protect you. And airlines actually better enforce it, as uncomfortable as it is. Now, I've traveled, a few times during COVID, and it's no fun at all. But at least because of the fact that I'm reasonably assured that people will be wearing masks and wearing shields, and the airline is taking care and the airports are taking care of cleanliness and germ protection, etc. I feel reassured that, okay, if I have to travel, I'll be safe. So it's a near-term thing, the current situation where the masks, etc., are a necessary hassle to protect you. But in the longer term, hopefully it'll be history. You don't need to wear all that anymore.
Will, for example, economy travel become less cramped? I mean, over time, if you travel in economy, you're being more and more squeezed. Your leg room, the elbow room, everything. You're being more and more sardined. But now we need to be maintaining distance. Will a longer term trend be that economy becomes less cramped? Will we be able to carry as much baggage on our planes?
See, Gautam, we could
will
have a separate session altogether on that. I mean, the reality is you get what you pay for. Economy class today is a fraction of the price it was in inflation adjusted terms, what it was even 5 or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And if you want more space, you buy a ticket in premium economy, which is still cheaper than what economy was 10 years ago. So eventually, customers need to, vote with the wallets. Products exist, but if you want the cheapest fare, then you'll get a cramped seat. And if you're willing to pay 20% more, which is still again cheaper than what you would have paid 5 or 10 years ago, you can get a premium economy seat and more leg room and more space around you. And business class today is better than first class used to be 10 years ago for less money. So, I think, like I said, a separate discussion can take place on the entire product, revenue, yield management, pricing, customer preference discussion, which I think we can't go into much detail today in this chat. But if you want more space and personal space, you have to pay for it, and it's not a huge amount that you need to pay, but you can pay a little bit more and get more personal space and security.
Okay.
And if I may come in,
what are hotels gonna have to do? Sorry.
So actually, it's very safe, and the air the cabin gets every 2.5 minutes, and it comes down vertically. There's no horizontal flow of air. Air travel actually is very safe, and flying in economy is not unsafe at all compared to walking around in a market street. And once people are made aware of that properly, the fear of flying because of COVID will go.
Okay. So, I mean, my central point was, what are we going to have to do to restore confidence? Clearly, confidence has been dented.
So I think so Gautam, there's an answer for the short term. The short term is that listen, it is health and hygiene. That's it, right? So as long as the customer feels, whether it's an airline, whether it's a cab, whether it's a hotel room, that when I walk into this, I do not have additional risk of contracting the virus. That is the first thing in the short term. And unfortunately, till the time vaccination or there's the cure for COVID, that is the most important thing, right? And that's what we've had to do at hotels, right? So, for examples, the room service menus and the compendiums in the rooms and the bed throw at the end of the bed. Those are all gone because every single little touch point just adds to your risk, and then there is a confidence. If you remember when we used to go to hotel rooms, and we're not down to that stage way earlier, the WC used to have a little sleeve around it saying this has been sanitized, right?
Yeah.
And that was there primarily to give confidence to the customers that this is clean, right? Someone's taken the pain to do that. Then move to the white sheets, right? The white sheets came about because people said, I don't know, when there was those, gaudy print, dark colored bed covers and sheets on hotel rooms, half the people didn't know how clean and hygienic they were. And I'm sure if you used UV light, you would probably shudder to say what it was. White sheets came about to give that same confidence to the customers that, hey, listen, this is a pristinely clean environment, right? So today that is paramount in the hotel rooms, right? That the guest has to have absolutely 110% confidence that if he is in the hotel room and it's been sanitized, or if he's sitting on the table which says it's sanitized, that genuinely is sanitized, and if the server who's serving them is uninfected, is being checked 20 times a day or whatever number of times a day and so on, and he doesn't have the risk of going to a buffet and touching the spoon to serve himself food or herself food and have potentially a virus in the spoon. So I think we've all had to adapt that in the short term. In the long term, listen, it depends on how the fight against COVID evolves. So if it's just a vaccine, I think some of these protocols will still remain, but to a lower extent. If suddenly you get medication or some kind of cure to it, then a lot of them will go away. I don't foresee the mask going away for quite some time, right? The enforceability of the mask, I think, has to be much higher globally. Today, the enforceability of it is different in different parts of the world, right? And different parts of the hotel. So, listen, we have to ensure that that protocol is followed. But some of the things which were nice to have in the rooms, which could potentially add risk, as I mentioned, the potentially the compendiums, the room service, things like that. That's gonna become history. The second thing is digitization is going to see an acceleration. We're already seeing that in hotels. There's mobile check-in, mobile checkout. There is QR code food ordering, so I don't have to touch any device except my own to order the food. I can pay my restaurant bill through my cell phone thanks to some of the digital payment methods. So there is a whole advent of letting the customer drive and use his or her own device to make the choices they're making and to conclude the transaction that they want to do. And I think that is going to accelerate. And who can foresee what it'll be going down the road? But I think it is going to go. The world is going to move to a mobile check-in, check-out. I think the menus in restaurants, except a few where some people specifically want it, is going to become history. I think even the mobile bill or the bill that someone comes into you with a credit card machine to pay,
Go straight to your phone.
Is going to become history.
Okay. Since we're talking about technology, I mean, it's technology is becoming a substitute for physical events. We've seen that with this event. The office is where you are now. Geography is becoming history, so to speak. We've got virtual conferences, meetings, even weddings being done online. Can technology be a substitute for travel? I mean, you've got immersive technology, those goggles. Why do I need to travel to Paris to see the Louvre? Can't I see it comfortably ensconced with the right goggles? Why do I need to do a city tour when I go to Porto? Can't I first do that and see some of the sites through immersive technology? It's sort of sinking you in that. Do you think that there's going to be a set of people who are going to be interested in virtual travel and virtual experiences?
I think there'll be a very limited market.
Okay.
There are very few people who'd want to see Louvre through just virtual means, because travel is not only looking at a monument, it's also experiencing a new place, the language, the food, the interaction of the people there, transportation, a new experience altogether. And what you see virtually is very limited. I do not think virtual travel can ever replace real travel.
Okay.
And I would say that virtual reality, like you're referring to, might even boost travel because it'll make people more keen to go and see those places in real life, what they're seeing through the VR.
Right. Maybe it could complement.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Okay.
Gautam, I'm not going to say never. You never say never, right? Listen, I would say certainly not in my lifetime, right? There's a different experience and the different interaction and human interaction and so on. But listen, again, going back to our childhood days, dinner time was a conversation around the table. It wasn't a WhatsApp chat across people, right? So the world has moved a little bit. So I don't know what the next generation or the generation after that would be. But
yeah, I mean, we would never have be using Zoom and online stuff as casually as we are had COVID not happened. Yeah. We would still have been schools, education, work. There were so many reservations about those things moving to an online platform. It's not that the whole thing moves; it complements. So I'm wondering whether we'll see some experiences shift to a virtual scenario.
Certainly, I think business meetings will come down in number. Actual attending school in classes can also be reduced. It can never be removed. But yes, some of the teaching.
Okay.
all those benefits experience.
Yeah. So Gautam, the empirical data suggests otherwise. I think Sanjiv used the terms revenge travel or revenge consumerism, and we experienced that. The minute today you have New Year's Eve at our hotels. At four of my hotels, I had 99% occupancy of the hotels, and the restaurants were sold out. Right, that to me was an indicator of a pure revenge that, listen, I have the opportunity to get out, I'm going out and I'm not staying at home, right? Which tells me that today people do still want to, whether it's to interact with people, whether it's to have human interaction in terms of speech, or whether it is to break the monotony of being at home, or whatever else it is. I don't know the reason why, but they do want to say get out of the home jail, if you will. They're getting cabin fever. That's not changing. And anytime there's an opportunity today, at events which we never even would have contemplated in the past that we would have such a huge demand for. Karwa Chauth, we had at some of our hotels, we created an evening out so that you can come and see the moon, and there's a specific menu. We were sold out in 15 minutes, right? In three of our hotels. So, I mean, any reason for people to go out and still have the confidence that, listen, I'm not going to get infected with that, with the coronavirus. I think they're doing it, which tells me that people are not going to do virtual, sit in a room and watch.
All right, good. Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for what I hope has been a provocative. Certainly, it's been an interesting discussion from my perspective. I hope others have found it suitably so. Thank you for sharing your perspectives. Let's hope that travel does bounce back, and let's hope that better times lie ahead for us. Back to you, Sanjiv.
Thank you very much. Let's say what you're saying does come true, that we recover from this trauma very soon. The vaccine does give us a glimmer of hope, and that, the wanderlust which is locked away inside us, we can explore it a lot more. Travel, hospitality, education, and pharma. These were some of the industries which were badly impacted by COVID. And it was our endeavor to try and talk about it during the Litfest in our discussions, so that we could understand from experts what the actual reality of the situation is. And thank you for sharing your views, Mr. Singh, Mr. Kapoor, Mr. Jain, and Mr. Raj. My colleague here, Ramesh Chandar, he will say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Harjinder Singh. Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Jain and Mr. Sanjiv Kapoor. And thank you, Mr. Gautam, for bringing out the best in all four of them by asking very provocative question. And the answers we got, it says that we are in for a good time in very near future. Like I said, that hotel was sold within, 3 hotels were sold within 15 minutes. It shows that people are raring to go out. The moment everything opens, we will be back to this thing and we'll be back with vengeance. Gentlemen, thank you very much for presenting your viewpoint here in this session. And we really enjoyed it. And I, on behalf of Vasant Vihar community, would like to present a small token of our affection, which will, of course, right now I'm doing virtually, but it will reach each one of you within short time. Thank you very much for joining us, and we really enjoyed your session.
And if you disbelieve about technology, then we will keep it for ourselves. We will not send it to you.
We can see it virtually. Yeah.
Well, you can see it virtually, and we'll keep it virtual. But no, thank you very much.
You.
And that's a wrap for this session, the day 2 morning session for the Litfest. And we look forward to seeing you again at 3 p.m., where we have another traveler who has cycled across many different places, who's adventure traveler. So he's going to be sharing his experience of his travels. So do sign in at 3 p.m. We look forward to seeing you then. Till then, enjoy your break. Take care.